welcome to the Spot Real Talk. My name is Tiara.
I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Ron.
And today we are here to talk about The Chi. This is season 4, episode 6. So you guys hang tight and we'll be right back to get the conversation started.
Baby, I know where the last one burned you. Know that ain't cool. Wanna show you how I'm nothing like him. Swear that's the truth. You can't trust that I won't.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Like I said, we are talking The Chi. This episode was titled Candyman. They're keeping with all of the old school movie names. LaWanda's out. She will be back with us, but we are going to send her some love. She's just a little bit under the weather, but she'll be back with us next week.
Much love.
Yes, much love to LaWanda. Now, you guys, this episode threw me for a loop. I'm so glad they did not keep us waiting throughout the whole episode or through the whole season, for that matter, to figure out who shot Duda.
I'm glad too.
Yeah, me too. But I think I almost fell off the couch when you bring back Brandon's mom from the dead. I mean, she comes back strong with I was floored.
Yeah, she definitely was a shocker. Now, I knew that there was a possibility that they could throw us a curveball, but bringing in Laverne to be the shooter for Otis, I was like, whoa, that actually was better than what I could have predicted.
That was a good choice. It does make sense. And for all the folks that thought that Brandon was in protective custody and stuff, Duda confirmed in the hospital that he had Brandon killed, that he killed Brandon. So that puts that to bed.
And I thought it was a great way for them to tie up that loose end, because everybody kept saying, well, is Brandon, like, kind of like you're saying, is Brandon alive? Is he dead? Did Otis do it? Did he not do it? That confirmed it. And Laverne was like, you already, I've already had one of my sons die. I have the second son taken by somebody that is trying to promote himself as like this, community-oriented public figure, when you just killed my son. Like, no. So I was like, that was the perfect way to tie up that storyline from Brandon and his family.
And thank you. I think that brings up to another point of mine that I was making off the air, which we will get into it later. So Laverne adds to my whole point of conversation. But we'll get into it later.
Okay. Well, one of the things I wanted to say was, as a mayor, he doesn't have security detail. I just was wondering, I was like, how was she able to get that close to him? I mean, to roll up on him like that. So it's like,
Otis plays by his own rules, and he's quick to tell somebody to go away or leave me alone. I want my alone time, especially when he was planning on rendezvousing on
he
rooftop.
was right.
So,
right.
I can see him sending his security away. The thing that I was questioning a little bit was Rosalind. Because I'm like, it's a little unusual. I know she's a part of his campaign and his staff, but it was just unusual for her to be stepping up in his place, because she's not actually an elected official. So I'm like, I would figure they would have like a runner-up. Not even a runner-up, but like a vice mayor, maybe. I don't know.
Not unusual at all, and I can't wait till we get to that point. And it just begs my point altogether. And we're going to talk about it, and I don't want to, don't want to be too quick on the gun, because I know I got this person on my other end here. So I'll just
go ahead.
No.
Do your thing.
I know we have a format, so let's just get to it, because this is juicy. I'm just saying. This is juicy.
Well, that's quite all right, Ron. I can't wait to hear your points.
Me too.
And you will.
Okay. All right. Well, just on that Rosalind situation, because we know that she has been trying to secure her spot for a minute, and she told him straight up. But he was a little upset when she came in and she had already started taking on his responsibilities. And he's like, you look like you getting a little too comfortable. And so I definitely see a feud coming on between them. And Otis is even gotten to the point where he's told Trey, like, I straight up, I don't know who to trust. So.
And he has a point in that too.
He does have a point in that.
Not to say, and not to say that he didn't encourage it, but because his behavior has been less than, sovereign, if you will, to his wife, Roz. You can only push a person in the back. I mean, push him in the back so long and keep him behind you. At some point, with a strong woman, that's not going to work. At some point, she's going to find a way to make her way. And I think that's exactly what you see with Rosalind. And to some degree, initially, I thought that might not be a bad idea. But when she had that press conference, I think that was a little too spicy for someone who, as you said, Tiara, doesn't have any political ramifications other than being the wife of the mayor. So it's interesting for her to just jump into that relationship and into that situation necessarily and make herself, the strong arm of the mayoral campaign.
Yeah, I agree. I just was thinking about from like the perspective of like, we have presidents, we have vice presidents. So I'm like, is there somebody else that can step in for him? Because like just being a spouse, I would think that that's kind of not necessarily a conflict of interest, but if you elect a public official in, then you expect them to lead. And if they are in the position where they can't lead, you can't always assume that their spouse is capable.
Correct.
So it's just like, it just looked odd from the optics of the situation.
And just last week, she was saying to him that she wanted a position in administration, and she threatened that if she didn't get one, she was going to serve him with divorce papers. Yeah. So it's like now she's bogarted her way into administration.
Pretty much. And
she's taking over. I mean, she literally took over. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. She took over.
Yeah, she did.
A G for that.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, I may have another alphabet for her, but hey, we'll get. I'll reserve that.
And then surprise, guess who didn't come to see Otis at the hospital? Tracy. And
Otis. She came later.
After Roz had to tell her that Otis was looking for her, because remember he was like kind of peeping out the door, like, "Oh, is that her?" And it wasn't her; it was his doctor coming in the room. So she was like, "Oh, you looking for Tracy?"
Well,
and
it's interesting.
Rosalind relayed the message, and that's when Tracy showed up.
Tracy showed up because her money got cut off.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Right, her money's gone. So,
well, now Tracy, bird man.
Tracy, I was going to say, what I tell y'all about Tracy last season? And she got Ronnie late.
I mean, she just keeps showing her true colors, man. She was all about the money, and I mean.
That's what happens. I mean, that's what happens. If that's what you're about, eventually, look, that snake is going to bite no matter who it is. And if you're just about the money, it's going to come back to bite you in the ass. And that's exactly what Tracy's getting. And Tracy should have known better, because she should have known who she was dealing with in the first place. So I can't have any sympathy for Tracy, because you stepped in that dog mess all by yourself. It's not like you didn't see it. You just stepped in it. And I don't understand that kind of mentality.
I don't think he cut off the money though. I think Roz did. Mm-hmm. Because now that Roz took over the role, she cut the money off. Yep.
Well, let's go back to my statement. You stepped into that mess. This man was married. You decided to get in bed with a married man who has your funding. And I can't tell you how many times that people have heard that business and relationships and social affairs don't mix. Yep. Business has to be with business, and your relationships have to be in that realm. But you stepped into this mess, and you stepped into it knowingly that this man is married, and that at some point, I said it earlier, Roz is going to come. I said it earlier, a couple of shows ago, that just because Roz is playing that role like she understands and she doesn't care, you can't do a woman like that, brother.
Yep, there was no way Roz was going to just let her roll up in there. Yeah.
No kind of way. It's going to come back to bite. As I said, that snake is going to bite 100% of the time, no matter who it is.
Because regardless of how much Roz wants power and stuff, you did genuinely see her concern when he was shot.
Correct.
You saw that she was concerned. She was by his side in the hospital, kissing his forehead and stuff. So I was like, she was acting like a wife then. She wasn't just acting like a business partner then. So I think that I know we've discussed in our comments and everything that she just married him just for appearances and stuff, and maybe so, but I think that she has feelings for him too.
Well, I think so. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt Roz's feelings for Duda, not at all. I just think that the way the whole relationship was mistreated by Duda, and then you bring her on into this business relationship, and you continue to do the things you do to demoralize her in a sense, that it's going to come back and haunt you. And he's now getting haunted by those very things I mentioned. So yeah. I expect Duda to get rolled over because you've given her no respect.
Right. Now I've got a question for you guys. Now that we know that Otis knows who shot him, do you think he's going to seek out any revenge on Laverne, or is he just going to, call it an eye for an eye and let it slide?
I believe that. In fact, it would be to his best interest to do that because
I don't.
Well,
I think he might have somebody. I do think he's changing, though. I do
that's
feel
the
like
whole point,
changing.
And that's the whole point. He can't keep going back and forth. He's either going to go forward with who he is today. And besides that, going back to Laverne, what does that do for him? I mean, I'm sure he understands Laverne's trauma and deprivation by losing, Brandon, 2 sons actually, and then you being the reason that Brandon is dead, and she knowing that. I mean, come on, what would you expect her to do? What would you do?
He may not, but Roz might.
I was about to ask you if you thought she might.
He told Roz who did it. So Roz is already taking care of his business. Roz might have somebody do it.
But why would she do that when she realizes she knows who Duda is? She knows where Duda came from. She understands that. And right now, with Roz playing, getting all this power in her hands now and wanting to go a different way, why would she take a step back to do that?
Close the chapter. To close the chapter.
Not even to close the chapter, but Laverne, she's gone rogue a little bit. She's reeling off her emotions, and she thought that she was shooting to kill. And the fact that she didn't, who's to say that she might not come back and try to say, you know what, I really want you gone.
Well, so, I have to take that.
It's a little on the far, right side, but who's to say that she isn't like really going through it? Like, she could be in a very deranged state of mind to a point where she is just willing to risk it all.
I'm going to have to assume that if anybody grabs what looks like a 45 of some sort, and you put a bullet in one person right in the lower left abdomen, that either you intended to, I want to say mortally wound, but if I'm going to kill you, kill you, that one bullet would not have sufficed. I would have put a couple bullets in you, not just in the lower left abdomen, but in the head or heart. So you don't just put one bullet in a person and walk away, because typically you can live from a gunshot wound. So now you can say, well, she probably didn't know that one shot would not do the what she wanted. But if you really want to make sure a guy is dead, you make sure he's dead at the scene.
Or maybe she was trying to be discreet, just like one.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So nobody can hear too much.
Where's the discreet? I mean, you shot the man.
This is a very high profile event. She don't want to be bringing off bullets back.
Right.
So if you shoot one, it's like, was that a firework? Was that a bullet? What was that?
Shoot twice.
Is she a marksman? This may be her first time firing off a gun.
Okay, you 3 feet from your subject. You don't need to be a marksman. So I mean, and like I said, she put one in the lower abdomen. I mean, a lot of times that's
kills.
I get ready to say, a lot of times that will kill a person. But if I really want you dead, I'm gonna make sure you're dead. So if I put one in you, I'm gonna put the other one right here. And then I know you're dead.
I hear you.
So it's no second guess. Was she sending a message to Duda?
Yes,
You know,
she was. And I think
and
he got it loud and clear.
that's my point. And that's why if I were Duda, I leave the woman alone.
Well, we'll see. Now that situation with Trig and Imani, where they were saying like our loyalty isn't free anymore, you know, our trust isn't free. Do you think that Otis is going to be the helper that they need to take down the guys that are running these trap houses with these women and stuff, or does that dig them deeper into a hole? Because now they're screwing with the operations of that whole business. And that could be a rivalry, a rival gang or something to Otis's crew.
I think that question could be answered when you ask the question, just how big a snake is Duda? You know, and because that really will tell the story. Just how big a snake are you? You call for them to help you out. They help you out, and they tell you there's a price, and you have to be either willing to pay the price or not. And Duda, are you going to pay the price? You should, but you know, let's see. I seem to think that Duda is still all about himself. Although I think that after the shooting, he's beginning to realize some things.
He doesn't have people he can trust. So,
and that's a big thing to realize when you're in the position that he's in, particularly being the mayor and needing people around him that he can trust. So he's either going to be the biggest snake that there is, or he's going to have to capitulate and deal with Imani and her wishes.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really too many ways around that, because you know, when you are so dependent on somebody, it kind of creates an opening for them to take advantage of a situation. And in this case, it's for the greater good. But we've seen how pushy Imani has been lately, so we don't know to what extent she's going to want him to participate.
Yeah.
So, well, I guess we'll see about that situation. I wanted to shift gear and go into this whole Kevin, Jake, Gemma, Papa. They've gotten everybody involved now in their whole relationship triangle here.
Well, Papa did it. Papa
yeah,
had that. You know.
Now I was going to ask you guys: do you think it was okay for Papa to kind of bring them in blindly, trying to mediate the situation?
No.
Because, I was going to say it could have popped off all the way wrong.
Well, I don't think he was right in doing it, but I certainly understand the premise behind it. Because if you know, Papa, as he said, he's always been their their aggregate all the time, you know, for their whole relationship. You know, he's always been the one that they could go to, and he would find a way to meld the situation and referee and bring things together. However, that room was too small for that, you know what I mean? Because it could have popped off and went a whole entirely different way. But given that Gemma and Jake really is the cause of all of this, I think Papa was right in thinking that there needs to be some sense of communication, and it has to be in a group form. So his ideals were good. I just think that the wounds were too right. The wounds.
Well,
it was too soon, and on air too.
That's what I was gonna say. Papa has got it honest from his daddy, because boy, is he exploiting stuff for his benefit.
Yeah, because I was like on air, I was like, I just thought about me and their kids. And I'm grown. And if I had come in there and I was set up to talk about my conversation, our situation on air, I probably got them left.
Yes.
So I applaud the kids, at least Gemma, for sitting there, and attempting to say anything. Jake ain't say nothing, but at least Gemma and Kevin attempted to have a conversation.
I really wanted Jake to take more responsibility for what he did. Because Gemma, she was apologetic, but her apologies came with a but. You know, it wasn't "I'm sorry" and that's the end of it. It was like, "I'm sorry, but you closed me out and you did this and you did that and you made me feel this way, and I was looking for something different now." And so
because there's to be ownership on Kevin's part too. Now Jake, it goes back to what I was saying last week about Jake. When I asked about what was his obligation to his friend, and this week it did not seem like he felt like he had any obligation to Kevin, and it seemed like Gemma was more remorseful than he was, even though Gemma is wrong too. But because when she was talking to him, she was like, "Well, you don't want to apologize," and he was just like, "Well, what good is that going to do?" Like, he and then he said, even when Kevin was like, you know, when it's the fight first jumped off, he, you know, he threw the thing at Jake was just like, he said, "So you don't have nothing to say?" He was like, "Ain't shit to say." Like, he didn't even attempt to make things right with Kevin. And I was like, and that was foul.
Jake,
and in his conversation with Gemma, he said straight up, like, Kevin is not going to stop me from living my life. You're like, yeah, I feel bad for what happened, but he's not going to stop us from living our life. We're going to keep doing what we're doing.
Right. And what was happening? Gemma was over his house. Gemma's father was picking her up from his house. Like, they moved on to a full-on no question. So I was like, Jake ain't had no, you know.
I want to comment on that, but I want to hear what Ron got to say too.
Yes, me too.
I got so much to say. First of all, Gemma is responsible for all of this. And
Jake went along.
Like a puppy dog. But he is, but first of all, in class, what sort of conversation could have been had in class? I think Jake did exactly what he should have done. He ignored the fact that Kevin threw that pen at him. He ignored it. He's in class. So at least I can see Jake is trying to get something from.
But he said ain't shit to say.
Well, there wasn't anything to say.
Like he owed Kevin. He could have said, "We'll talk later, Kev."
No, he could have, but in the sense of ignoring it, it's the same thing. Kev could have waited till they got outside, but he could have.
He was just so emotional. He was in his feelings, just stewing on it.
They were being cutesy right in front of his face. They were like, he already caught them. Nobody has apologized. Now they're in class.
It's like rubbing it in.
It is. It was.
What part of the movie did y'all see that I missed? I'm trying to say that in class.
Yeah, I get that too.
You don't do
it's not the right time or the place.
No, I agree.
Let me tell you, and I put it another way. Kevin wasn't in class at all. His mind was someplace else on those two. Kevin never came to class. He only went to class.
Those two were flirting right in front of him. He was sitting right behind Gemma. So it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to be, you know, focused on class when your best friend has betrayed you.
Then you know what you do? You stay home. Then you know what you do? If you can't accept that, then you stay home. Because had he stayed home,
how he gonna tell his parents I'm staying home because
I'm
my
sick.
best friend?
I don't feel
Come
well.
on now, you're like 14.
I'm
well, I would say he could ask to be excused, go to the bathroom, go to the guidance counselor or something.
Anything. But his body showed up in class. His mind was not in class. So, and what I'm simply saying is about Gemma, you know better. You are more intellectually sound than this. So why are you playing up to Jake's ambition in terms of, and I'm not even sure if Jake was actually trying to rub it into with Kevin. I don't know if that's the case. And I wouldn't say that it was, but
I would say I think I agree with you, right? It was inappropriate. And I think that Gemma was leading that in the classroom.
The whole thing. And so, you know, while you want to point at Jake and his responsibilities, does he have it? Does he have responsibility? Yes. I cannot exclude his responsibility in what happened or what transpired. But he's a man. Men deal with things differently than women. So if anything, Gemma should have been a mediator.
I'm sorry. Were you done?
No, I'm good. I just to say that she could have mediated that whole point before it went south. Because now the boy's out of school and not indefinitely anymore, permanently.
Yeah, that broke my heart to see him, you know, come back so remorseful, ready to, you know, make amends, and then to get shut down like that. That hurt.
I know. That's the thing. I mean, what happened to like probation and then, you know?
I have never heard of a zero tolerance policy. These are kids we talking about.
Well, there are schools. No, there are schools that have them, but the question is, do they give them fairly? You know, because Kevin did mention the fact that had it been a white boy, would you have been giving zero tolerance with him? And
well,
I
that's what I'm
doubt it.
saying. Zero tolerance to what though? Like drugs and alcohol and like
No.
guns and paraphernalia like that. Like I
No.
understand the zero tolerance on that, but fighting.
Well,
They're
yeah.
kids. They have emotions. Things are going to happen.
I was going to say, typically they at least try to find out what's going on with the kid. Anything could be happening.
This
and
is
then when you think about last season, Kevin's sister was abducted and everything. So like, why wasn't that taken into consideration? Like, this kid has been through it. And so the first time he makes a mistake, you just toss him out to school. Like, that is,
and especially coming from a black principal.
Talk to Mayor Duda.
Guys,
I hope Duda can get him back in school.
He made a hell of a mistake. And the biggest mistake came when the teacher was injured. So
that was an accident, though.
It might have been an accident. Well, it was an accident caused on your inability to control yourself. And the school was simply saying is, we are of an echelon that we cater to young boys and girls that can manage and control themselves. You were totally out of control and you caused this situation and you've harmed the teacher. I mean, with kids, that would have never been lived down. I mean, because it would be on social media. You would in effect have tainted the school's identity of who they are.
I still disagree with that. So, I feel like that could have had the teacher come in and had Kevin apologize directly to the teacher, bring in the upper, I guess the people that are in charge of the decision or whatever, and just have like a real like mediation session.
If that fight were outside, I would agree with you. But the mere fact, like I said, Kevin's body was in school, his mind wasn't. He lost it, and he caused the fight, and he caused the teacher to be injured. Now, I've never been to a private school, so I don't know how strict they are to things, and I'm not blind to not understanding that in circumstances like that, white kids tend to get better advantages than black kids in those same circumstances. I'm not blind to that. But what I'm simply saying is, A, you're black. B, you should have known better. And if you can't, like they say, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. So you could have asked to be excused. You could have not shown up because you had, you were sick, anything. But when your temper and your feelings are that raw, you don't go into a situation where they're going to be and knowing what can pop off. Because if it were me, I would not have wanted to be around them at that point in time, because I would have known that it would be a powder keg just waiting to explode.
Mm-hmm. And this is why you said Gemma was apologizing and things like that, and she might have shown some remorse, but I don't really think she's remorseful, because if you are remorseful and you know that you have a class with this guy that you just cheated on, you don't throw it in his face like that, and he's sitting right behind you.
Oh, that was foul.
That's all. I don't know how remorseful she really is. I think she puts on a good front, like she's sorry, but I don't know if she really is.
Okay, I'm going to bring this up now because I think it's an appropriate time.
Go ahead.
I'm looking at a pattern here, and this pattern seems to be the demolition of strong black men in this community of theirs. They seem to be subordinated by these women. And what I'm getting at is with Maisha and Papa, with Kevin and Gemma, Rosalind and Duda. I'm seeing this subordination of men over these women. And I'm asking the question, but I'm beginning to see that I believe that there is an apparent happening that these men are being subordinated. And I'm not quite understanding why. Now, there have been instances where we can point at Kevin for doing what he did to cause Gemma to go to the other side, his best friend. There are instances where we can point at Duda that would make you seem or make you understand why Roz did what she did in overtaking the mayoralship in front of the media. Likewise, with Maisha and Papa, when Papa wouldn't allow Maisha to have her 15 minutes of glory. But is there this subordination, or am I just putting something in the wind?
I don't know if it's a coincidence, but I can definitely see your perspective, especially coming from a Black man. Like, I don't like to say that what you're seeing is not what you're seeing.
Right.
So I hear you on that part. Now, whether it's intentional or not, I don't know, and I doubt that it is. But there is noticeably like I do like see what you're saying, where like the women overpower the men. Especially we've seen it a lot in this episode. But it seems to be justified by what the men had done previously, which goes into the larger conversation that I think we had previously about the representation of like men on the show, where they're not necessarily any positive Black figures, where, you know, they can't be just shown as like a positive Black male without having like a ton of flaws and, you know, the stereotype, like the worst stereotypes. So I hear you on that. I mean, it's something that you are, you know, I mean, you're entitled to express your opinion for sure. And I can see what you mean. Like, I mean, it's not like I can't see it. I can't say that I can't see it.
And I don't mean for it to be a Black male syndrome, you know, just because I'm seeing this, you know, it's just that it's interesting how all the women are leaving these men in such a way that subordinates their character. And, you know, yes, I understand that, you know, drama is necessary and bringing reality.
It's called conflict, and they all are flawed. Yeah. That's something I said in previous discussions, that everyone is flawed. Like, you know, how we all felt about Papa. Like, we think that Papa is a positive character, but you know, he got caught up in his own soapbox. I mean, he got a little jealous because his little podcast was not doing as well, and you know, and Maisha was playing in the background. She was playing in the background. She was supporting Papa, and now that it was her moment to shine, he wasn't being as supportive. And I was like, whether you think that's an issue on the show or not, but that has happened in real life with folks.
Well, like I said,
between men and women and stuff. So I think they're just young people, and it's a real issue.
Yeah, and what I will say too about it is that, like, whenever these characters do go through these things, like, we do see them turn it around. Like,
I think they'll come back to each other.
Yeah, we've seen it with Ronnie, who turned his situation around. We're starting to see it with Emmett, who's turning his situation around. We're even seeing, although Kevin and Jake are you know, butting heads, they're both at a turning point, I think. Where they could either go, you know, worse down the line, or they could really like improve who they are and grow from their instances. And that's why I appreciated the conversation that Emmett had with Kevin about his situation.
I did too.
And he was telling him there's a lesson in everything. Like, you need to look at your situation and pull, like, it might be painful right now, but pull from it what you can to grow and grow past the situation, because you're not always gonna feel like this. Like, you need to take the lesson out of this and use it as a blessing, basically. And it can teach you something.
Good point. I'm sorry. I was gonna say also, you know, to your point about Emmett, like, Emmett is changing. Like, you know, you see he's running his business. Even though he and Tiff got their issues right now, there seemed to be a tender moment this episode between he and Tiff. And I think that situation with his mom is going to bring he and Tiff back on one page. I do think ultimately that's what's going to happen. And then, you know, he's in a position that he's able to step into the role that Brandon was to Kevin, and he's giving him advice, even the point where Kevin had met another little girl. And that speaks to the point that I made last week about y'all. I feel like y'all, you know, y'all be on to the next. Y'all be making your next move. Like, he barely out of the situation with Gemma, and you know, he's meeting another little girl, and that, you know,
yeah, just like Gemma, Gemma didn't waste any time going to her next. So, you know,
I mean, no, she didn't. But Jake was right under her nose.
Like, as I said, that these instances are microcosm of a community, and with these shows, they are microcosm of real life. But However, what I'm beginning to see, like women aren't just dealing with the situations, they're actually leaving. I mean, Maisha said just before that instance, when they were all in the room, Maisha said, just because that person begins with you doesn't mean that that person is going to end with you. So it seemed to me that Maisha may have had some thoughts about this even prior to her saying to Papa that I need some space. So it seems like that this has been something that she might have been, I don't know, thinking about, and then decided that this is the perfect moment to exercise my will here. And it just seems with Gemma, Maisha, and Roz, that they are taking over, not just having the conversation or trying to deal with the problem, but they are dropping the men and taking over certain aspects of the show. So it just leads me to believe that there is a pattern here. And, I'm not trying to look, I'm not trying to be Larry part 2. It's just that he made reference to something. Now let me say this. It has nothing to do to me with gaiety or anything like that, or who the show director is. It doesn't mean anything. That means nothing. This is real term. This is real talk. When you look at Dre and Nina, you know, Dre being the more masculine in the relationship, Nina decides to follow Dre, decides to find out if Dre is lying or not, and then she does makes the ultimate mistake.
She was out of pocket. Yeah, she was out of pocket.
Nina gotta get the hands.
Nina has to get the hands this week because first off, she should have communicated.
Yes.
And to me, that's what I'm saying, though. That's Larry's whole point. Because Larry said the only people that communicated effectively on the show was the gay characters. And she didn't even communicate. She didn't even find out.
Wait a minute. That's why, like I said, that's why I'm not Larry part 2. I'm talking about the masculine or the emasculation of men. And when you look at Dre is the masculine part of that relationship. And again, so I can throw Dre in with the rest of the guys here on this show, how they're being minimized by these women. And it seems to be a pattern.
She was minimized to say, I think Nina just did something stupid.
She did, but the point is, but look, what that thing that she did, I guarantee you she's going to tell Dre.
She's going to tell Dre what she did?
She's going to tell Dre.
She's going to tell, or she's going to find out they're going to run into the brat again.
Yeah, the brat,
on the show.
Yeah, and that's not going to be a good look when that happens. And I'm going to tell you, she'd be better off to tell Dre, because I don't know how deep girlfriend got with Nina, but girlfriend was looking for something and Nina gave it to her. So you best tell Dre and tell her quickly how and why you made the mistake. Here again, form of communication.
Nina was wrong. She
was. I was saying, like, it would have made way more sense for her to have confronted Dre and Jada in the moment. You already there on the scene. She already confirmed that she was lying to you about where she was and what she was doing. Why not roll up on them out, just jump out the car? Why are you gonna go and stew over it at the bar and swallow in your sadness instead of just confronting the situation right then and there? And because of it, you made the stupid mistake that you now can no longer come from. And the guilt of that, the fact that your wife was out here caring for your best friend in her time of need, albeit they didn't tell you the truth right away, you still have ruined your relationship because of your own misjudgments.
And once again, you can blame Dre for not explaining to Nina or not keeping Jada's secret. And here again, we can point at Dre and say, you're the catalyst to all this.
She should have communicated.
Had you communicated in the very beginning, this all might not have happened. But it seems like with all the men, it's all the hadda, if you coulda, woulda, shouldas. And because you didn't, these are the results. You tend to get blindsided by the very person that you held, so secure in your heart. So look.
Well, in a situation with Papa, Nina, Papa was putting
Papa was wrong.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's interesting how we write into these mishaps with these relationships. I mean, Papa had no business trying to step in to Maisha's 15 minutes of fame. He had no reason to do that.
I think he just saw opportunity and he jumped on it because he was already feeling like, dang, my podcast is not doing well. I don't have enough publicity. I need like some more attention or else I'm gonna quit. And Maisha had encouraged him through that. And
Smartly.
so I think that in the moment he was like, oh, well, if you want to hear her music, then why not do it on my podcast? Let me just plug myself real quick. And not thinking of how that might feel to her.
She smartly influenced him by saying that your show isn't really about
clout. It's about the community.
Well-known people, right? It's about the community, what you serve. And if you took your behind out there, that what you're seeking will come. So she was just trying to employ some good sense to him, and unfortunately his ego got in the way. And yes, that happens all the time. And I'm not mad at him for that, but was it enough to make Maisha split?
She said, let's take some space.
Well, we know what that means.
She didn't,
you know what that means. And you know what?
It doesn't mean it is permanent, though.
You know what? I ain't never had a time when I in a relationship, when we took some breathing room, that room didn't become as big as the house itself.
It doesn't always have to be. Sometimes you need a minute.
I want to comment on some of these, younger relationships, like the puppy love thing, because like we're viewing through the lens of adults. Like we know what the situation is, but for real, as kids, they should not even be focused on these long-term relationships trying to make, like, they should be enjoying themselves being kids, and they're like in these real adult situations facing these adult problems and not having the maturity necessarily to deal with them correctly. And that's why I think Kevin and Gemma and Jake are in the situation they're in, because they're not mature enough to be in the situation in the first place. And then it also goes down to, like, I especially seen that when Jake and Gemma got caught in the room. And Imani pulled Gemma aside and Trig talked to Jake. And I really loved his conversation where he was saying,
I did too.
Deal with her with care. She's not just, or not even her, women in general, they're not just somebody that you can run through and toss to the side and use for your own pleasures. Like, they are humans, they have feelings and emotions, don't just toy around with them. So I appreciated that conversation. And he said, as much as you look out for her heart, you need to be guarding yours too. So I did like that. But the conversation that Imani had, I was kind of side-eyeing her a little bit, because I was like, I understand not passing judgment on people, but she's not an adult, she's not a grown woman. And so just telling her, as long as she protects herself and gets consent, like, cool. And I understand that's not your child, so that's not the conversation to have with her. But I think that her father surprised me a little bit more, because she's already seen Kevin coming in, and I mean, his father has already seen Kevin coming in and out the house, and now you're picking up your daughter from another guy's house. I would be a little concerned about that, given that they are teenagers and they have these hormones and stuff. Everybody wants to date, but like I said, they are too young to be putting themselves in those situations. And so if I was her father, I would be having a conversation.
He looked like he was looking at the house. He looked like he was really judging.
He was judging the wrong stuff.
Well,
not necessarily the environment. You need to be having the conversation with your child about why. I mean, Kevin called her a homie hopper, straight up. So I was like, I mean, I don't want to put that title on her, but we all know that in our communities and in general, women are judged way more harshly and deemed loose or whatever for being seen with, a variation of guys. And so that's a negative stain that you don't want your daughter to have on her.
Well, I wanted to, you can't have too many thoughts. You can't have too many thoughts at one time. One part I wanted to mention, but before I do that, let me get back to this situation. The father, you walk into someone else's house. Now you're evaluating. You're looking around. You're looking at the house, but you're looking at Trig's body language. He's sloped down into the chair. with his white beater t-shirt on. But Imani didn't make it any better coming out dressed the way she was and standing next to him. And I mean, come on. I mean, what are you trying to say, people? And as a father who has a daughter, I guess he's been trying to understand exactly where she's going here, because I could be picking her up from a mansion. Instead, I'm picking her up from this kind of thing. So he's seeing a pattern with his daughter too. But you mentioned something about we looking at it from an adult lens, but we were children too. And I recall,
and that's how I know that they ain't ready for what they're doing.
Well, yeah, but I also recall that I wasn't ready for a few things I was doing too as a child, but I got over it because I knew that there was a better end for me. I knew that there was something.
Think of all the people that didn't have a better end.
Well, like I say, this is a
premature pregnancies and their whole life gets thwarted. I mean, we seen it with Kiesha, but just in a different way. Like, she didn't ask for that. So I'm not going to put that on her.
Correct. And that's why I say that this is a microcosm of reality in this show, because yes, you have a choice regardless of how old or young you are. And it just depends on what choice you take. Yes, I was young. I had a choice, and it just was call it luck, call it whatever, but I know what I decided to do. And I know that when I had certain situations that involved me and a friend, I know what I didn't do. So they have choices. And just because they're young doesn't mean that they can't make the right choice. They can.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying from a parenting perspective, like if you were to see that, because Jim's father, he's so absorbed in his work and the campaign stuff. And a lot of times, like, it's like this thing with affluent families where they necessarily, like, I mean, it's at least a stereotype that, a lot of the richer kids can do whatever they want and get away with it because their parents, they just don't know about it or don't focus in on their child's everyday day-to-day activities. And so it seems like that's what's going on with Gemma, is like where they come from an affluent family and maybe he's not focused in on her dealings, that he's not paying attention to what's going on or just doesn't have the time to. And I think that the absence of like a mother figure in her life, I'm wondering if that like is playing a role, because like a mother would be like, oh no, honey, like you can't be doing this and that and the third. But whereas her father is not necessarily there, you'll be like,
well, I don't see that.
Expect him to step up a little bit more. I don't see that
because
I hope I see that.
Well, in most rich families like that, they send a car to go pick up the mother, or the daughter. He didn't do that. He showed up himself. And as we saw in other situations, in other episodes, he's fixing breakfast for.
I'm not saying he's a bad parent, but I want him to.
No, this has nothing to do with him being bad.
A little bit more.
No, it has nothing to do with him being bad. It has everything to do with him having a presence in her life, and I do believe he has that. It's just that Gemma has grown into this sense of independency that she feels as though she's grown and she can make certain decisions, and she's not looking at the ramifications of her decisions. And I think that what her dad is seeing in her is just that. He's thinking that this child needs to dial it back a bit.
But that's what I'm saying. Where do we get that conversation? Like I want to see that happen.
Well, hopefully he does after picking her up from Trig's house. Hopefully he sits her down and says and tries to get some clearance as to where are you headed here. Because
that's what I'm saying, because she doesn't seem to really have a compass. Like she's just doing her own thing. It seems to me like she is very strong-willed and very like set in her way. Like, this is what I'm doing and can't nobody steer me off my path. So I'm like, where's her compass besides like her own intuitions of what she wants to do? So Miss Gemma, I hope that conversation happens, because it was just surprising to me that, I mean, like Imani and Trig were kind of the ones to break up that situation. And like the father knew about Kevin sneaking in and out the house and he didn't really address it at all.
Yeah, I was surprised he didn't address it either. He saw it on camera.
Well,
I think he was a little more comfortable with Kevin though, because Kevin,
Kevin,
he presents a certain way.
Yeah, Kevin does present himself a certain way.
Right, he fit the bill. So, and knowing that, and I could understand that. I can understand that about the father. He's looking at Kevin and saying, okay, Kevin's in the right direction. And then you look at Jake, and you think you see a different direction, but we do know that Jake's trying to change, but I don't know if change is going to happen as quickly as it needs to satisfy Gemma's father. So that's going to be interesting how they write that in, because I would like to see some kind of parenting coming from her father in terms of what she's doing. Whether that happens or not, well, only the writers know for sure.
Right.
He'll probably ask her what happened to Kevin, like, and the fact that she moved on to Jake, because even Emmett said something about it. Like when he said she left before Jake, he was like, "Oh, that's effed up."
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, confirmation that there is a pro code,
Right.
Supposed to be.
Well, I mean, again, it's all circumstantial. It's messed up no matter how you look at it, but you got to look at the circumstances around it. And I think that when you come to that, and if Kevin were to come to that, I think he could see himself clear with the two of them, Gemma and Jake. What I did like, as you mentioned, Tiffany, you kind of hinted on, but I think you kind of snared it a bit. When Emmett saw this other young lady checking, and he said, "Hey, the best way to move on is to move on." I know that might have struck you a certain kind of way, but you know what? It's true. You can't wallow in this for so long.
No, I know, but
it will destroy you. I mean, it will destroy you. You got to pick up and get it moving. Because
I'm
not mad at that advice.
Okay.
I'm not mad at that either, but I'm saying that, y'all fellas seem to be really good at that. Like, even when y'all ain't quite out the door yet, y'all already thinking about that. That's what I said last weekend. And when Emmett gave her the advice, I was like, see, there it is.
Tiffany, it's not a fellow thing, because Gemma wasn't even out the door. Gemma was still in the door when she left and went.
I know.
So
I know.
Again, I don't think it's about male female actions or what we tend to do. It's just the heart. The heart wants what it wants, and who can know the heart? The brain doesn't even know the heart, because the heart will do things and the brain comes back later on and say, "What the heck?" So it's one of those things. I don't think it's as much. And I think what Emmett was just simply trying to say, "Hey, bro, you got to move on." And he just happened to check out a situation.
Here's another option. That's what he's. Here's another option, Kev.
What else would you say to the brother? I mean, that to me is a given. Check her out, see what she's about, and move on.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, to your point about Maisha, when she was saying about, the comment she made to Papa about saying the people you start off with, you may not end up with. I mean, I think that was just another way of her saying that sometimes people are in your life for a season or a reason.
Right.
So
I agree. Yeah. And she's not wrong. She's absolutely right. And it begs back to your comment, Tiara, that they're too young to be looking at these long-term life-changing situations that they get themselves involved in. These relationships are supposed to help you grow, not destroy you. But what we seem to be seeing in these shows is that they're very, very destructive, and it's causing some casualties that might affect them in long term.
Yeah.
And it certainly is
not the kind of puppy love that I'm used to. You be having the butterflies and stuff, but they are really out here having like real relationships. So I'm like, okay, that's a lot for a teenager, an early teenager at that.
Things have changed.
Yeah. Now I wanted to talk about another relationship that happened on the show with Kiesha and Christian, the guy that works with her. And so I thought that her storyline with him was very cute, because it was good to see, okay, we got a positive Black man here. Because Christian did his thing with Kiesha. He really gave her the support and comfort that she needs. And he's really trying to be more of a friend to her to start. Like, of course, he's interested in her and he wants to date her, but he's not just pursuing that. He's like, I'm going to be here for you and help kind of be that support system you need if you're feeling uncomfortable, or if you just need somebody to take you away from, you know, your everyday troubles. He's just providing her a good outlet, I think, and being very, very tender and caring with her emotions and her feelings, especially when she like kind of jumped at the touch of him touching her hand. I was like, oh, Kiesha is not ready for this, but he is the right person to get her there if she was going to date again, because he seems very patient. So I applaud that.
Let's hope he stays that positive black male too, because he seems to have everything that you would want. He's educated, he's intelligent, he cooks. He's very concerned about her health and well-being. And let's not write any flaws in this one, Tiffany. Let's not make him so less than perfect. I don't think that no one believes that anybody is perfect. So right. I think that we can have a male figure in this whole scenario that just doesn't screw up to mess up, to cause an evacuation of what could be a great relationship.
Well, let's hope that keeps going. Did you have anything to add on that one, Tiff?
No, I'm just saying. I was like, I don't think like all of the male figures haven't done anything so dastardly that they can't recover. I mean, I'm speaking right now to the Papa situation. Papa made an error by not letting her shine and everything, but I believe with a conversation and a little bit of time, they can get over it. So he hasn't done anything so dastardly they couldn't recover. So, you know, all the characters, I just stick with the point that I had always made, that all of the characters are flawed. All of them, male, female, whatever.
Yes. Now, we'll also give you this one, Tiffany, because you absolutely called, I think we all might have called this one in some way, shape, or form, but Kiesha wants her baby back.
We all called that. Yeah, I mean, that was a given. The biggest mistake that Tabitha, what's her name?
Octavia.
The biggest mistake she could have made was to give that baby to Kiesha. Here's the point. If you're trying to pull Kiesha from that whole environment, you can't keep inviting her in. And I knew the moment that Kiesha held that child and looked that baby in the face, that was it. It was over. I said that to my wife. I said, this is done. We can forget it now.
Listen, when she was looking last week after she gave birth, I knew she was done, because you can't go through that experience. I mean, I know some people have given their children up for adoption for various reasons, everything. But most women who have had children have gone through that experience. I mean, it's a miracle. That's something from God. So I'm like, yeah. When I saw the way she was looking, I was like, and then the fact that she went to her friend's baby baptism and stuff, and saw, you know,
and she was looking at like her postpartum body in the mirror. She's been pumping birth milk, and so it's like she has all of the emotions and the feelings, but not the baby. And so I understand that vacancy that you have, where it's like you feel empty, but you have everything else that came along with the experience.
And I know of a specific relationship where a 13-year-old girl had a child. The mother took that child, and that baby was never to be seen again. That child was given away, and the daughter, even to this day, who is much, much older, a grown woman with her own children, married, does not know anything about that child. I'm not saying that that's a good thing. You know, I think that's abhorrent, but you can't, you know, it would have been easier for me to understand Kiesha and her motives if she at least tried to raise the child, or give her some time with the child before you make that decision. That, like you said, Tiffany, you witnessed a birth. That is a godly miracle in and of itself. How do you walk away from that?
I think Kiesha felt defeated. I think she felt like the odds were stacked against her. You know, they're not a family that's like they're so needy, but they're also not doing so well where they can just feed a bunch of mouths. We heard Kevin talking about you know, them eating up all his snacks and stuff. He was like, well, you know, basically saying good he ain't gonna be here because that's another mouth to feed. So like I think that Kiesha was looking at that, and then also taking in the fact that that baby was born out of a rape, like just trying to tackle those feelings alone and figure out like if you can even overcome that. So I think that her being able to hold the baby and at least not look at the baby and see her abuser in the child might have been a stepping stone for her. And so some of those things, like especially the first time mom, you don't know what you're going to feel until it happens. And so that's why I'm kind of like, I can empathize with her a little bit.
Oh no, I can't.
Because she doesn't know what to expect, and she doesn't know what emotion she's going to feel when she feels them. Like, I really don't think she can call any of this, but just
I think just based on what you said, you know, the circumstances behind that birth are everlasting. She's going to play that back in her head over and over and over again as the baby matures, and she wonders if the baby looks like the father. I particularly think in those situations, that baby should have been taken. And I'm not an advocate of this, but I think that baby should have been taken and given away to someone that can love the child, that is outside the circumstances of how that baby came into being. Because you know, there are going to be times that you don't love that child as much as you do other times because of maybe something that they do. There are going to be times that that child grows older that you see in that child the father, and what then? So I think that to avoid all that, because that's painful enough, to avoid all that, take the baby and go.
I'm trying to figure out how Octavia is going to react to this, because we've seen her be very nurturing and we've seen her be very mindful of Kiesha and her situation, and even letting her come over to hold the baby and spend time with them. That was very generous in itself. And so I'm wondering if she'll have like a really adverse reaction when she'll be like, no, you made this decision, you got to stick with it. Or if she'll be like, we can compromise and meet in the middle. Like maybe I take care of the child and retain physical custody, but still allow you to be present in the life. Like, I don't know where it's going to go.
Did Kiesha sign any paperwork yet? Did they already gone through?
No,
that's a good question.
The legalities of this.
They said she had a certain amount of days or months or whatever it was to change her mind. So she has time. Right, she has time to change her mind. But back to your point though, Tiara, you know, she's very invested into this baby now. And here again is what I'm saying, because you got two women now who are they have a vested interest in this baby, and it's going to be ugly. I don't know. But see,
there's a difference though, because with Octavia, she has the financial means, and she obviously is nurturing. She has the love. She can provide that as well. But there's a difference from your maternal parent. You know, when Kiesha was saying like, oh, well, why don't you try turning on the vacuum or doing this or doing that? Like some things that and that's just like a very generic example of what Kiesha said. But certain things like just holding your child and you know, that child was in your body. They heard your voice all of those 9 months. And so it's something about being able to soothe that child that Octavia is never going to be able to do.
Well, they say that white noise does that for babies. They say that when children are you know, infants are crying and things like that, to play white noise, and that for some reason tends to settle them down. So I understood where she was going with that. But again, this baby was based on a rape, was based on an abduction, was based on her being torn to shreds mentally by that circumstance. And even though we know that children are you know, God's gift, the mind is a terrible thing. And for Kiesha to have to live with this, with that baby, it could be detrimental for the child. So if I'm going to look after anybody in this relationship, it's the child. And I believe that child would be better off somewhere where it's a neutral environment, because right now with Kiesha, it's not.
And I agree, because if you see the previews for next week, Keisha's having that conversation with Nina, and Nina is basically questioning her like, have you thought this through? Do you understand what's going to come along with it? Kiesha seems like upset that her mom is not supporting her. So this storyline is going to get crazy. And I was speaking from from Octavia's perspective, like where she might see that Kiesha has a connection to this child because she seems like an empathetic person. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I see her being like, no, you can't see this, but this baby is mine. Don't come back here. Like, I don't know if I see that from her.
I don't think you'll see it from her either. I don't think you'll see that because she did give her opportunity to change her mind. And I think, Octavia, being the person that she is, will adhere to it if Kiesha wants to change her mind. What I see Octavia doing is saying, I like to be a part of the baby's life.
That's why I said I think it's going to be a compromise.
Well, if not a compromise, at least some truth into saying, if you have a problem, if you can't do this, mm-hmm. I'm here. If you need anything for this baby, I'm here. Yes. If you need to go out and have a good time and you don't know what to do, I'm here. And I think that's the best thing that Octavia can do for the situation should Kiesha decide to keep that child. I love the writing so far. I even love the controversy that keeps coming up that allows us to speak on our show of some of the things that are going on. It's a beautiful thing. I hate to see it end. It's going to end. But kudos to the director, kudos to the writers, because you've kept us in vogue. You kept us in a situation where our minds didn't deplete themselves by saying, I'm a little bored of this show now. Let me go to the next. You're keeping us, titillated with things that happen in life, in real life, and I'm down for it. So keep on doing it. Now, I may not agree with you with every part of your show, as I am in disagreement with what's happening to some of these Black men, but I applaud you for doing it, and I'm right there with you. I'm going to hang in. I'm going to love this show even more. Because I know there's more to come. So y'all keep doing what you're doing.
Yes, I agree. I 100% agree. Now, I know we're running a little long, but there's one other thing that we didn't touch on, which was the Dom and Tiff situation with them partnering with another brand to get more, notoriety, more of a market share with their edibles. And so it seemed like they were going to partner with this white lady at first, and Dom and Tiff were kind of arguing about like, well, their value, their worth, basically. Tiff was like, I want the money now, basically, and Dom was like, no, we got to negotiate this because so many times Black women are undervalued. They don't give us the best offer, and she basically.
I was with Dom.
Me too.
Because I feel like she just was jumping at the first offer without even and I'm like, what happened to having like some lawyers look over paperwork and things like that. So I was like, just jump at the first
that's a merger. And this white woman realized who she was dealing with. And she said, oh, there's some things that you got, blah, 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 but go ahead and sign this paper. And Tiffany was just ready to sign, basically, probably, who knows, sign over a good portion of their company. But here again, the fight of good and evil. So you got the white woman coming up with a legitimate business merger, and then you got brother who comes in.
Trumper. Yeah. There was a lot of cameos this week.
It is, and good to have him. But he comes in with this back to the hood kind of situation. I need to run some edibles in my business, and we're gonna do business together. Blah blah blah. No.
Well, I seen it that way.
What?
I don't think I saw it that way either. I think the opportunity sound like a good one, and they're going to check it out.
And they get to stay Black owned. They get to maintain their inventory. They still get to grow their market share, and they get somebody that understands their community. Because sometimes when you merge with other companies, they see the value of your product, but they change your business plan and who they market to and how they market. And
maybe I missed it. What sort of business is he in?
He has a cannabis business as well, but he doesn't have the edible space locked down.
Okay. Well, okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. So that's why I was like, patience sometimes will, not jumping at that first offer will bring you a better option. And I'm glad that they were able to see that. Because I would hate to, and I'm glad this conversation was brought up in the show too, because it brought to mind something that Master P has always said, and Lala was, echoing the same sentiments. Like, well, if she's offering us X amount, we must be worth 3X, 2X.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm glad that conversation was had as well, because, and I think we see it a lot in our communities too, especially with the homes and things, where a lot of people have sold their homes because they jump at the number that they first hear, not realizing that once they gentrify the area, your house gonna be worth 3 and 4X the money. So sometimes it pays to have some patience and to hold out and to recognize your real worth.
And having a conversation about financial literacy on this show, which is important in our community.
Yes. So,
well, I'd like to hear a little more about it too, because I would like to know more about this venture with either party. And as you said, Tiffany, to show that there is this, that we can have a show that deals with financial literacy for, Black communities and still feel favorable about the show. So I'd like to see a little more about that. I mean, it doesn't have to be a whole season, but I would like to talk about it some more and see where they're actually headed, because I didn't get that smooth feel. Because we'll see.
All right, and I said that was the last thing, but there's one more thing with Jada and her situation. This episode was packed with a lot of stuff, so we had a lot of talking points. But Jada and her situation, so she has the conversation with Sway. She finally says she loves him back. He's still been doing his thing for her, getting her groceries. But then she had the conversation with Nina about being like a strong Black woman and constantly having to make sure everybody else is good and looking out for them, but just wanting to be herself and to not have to constantly be strong. So I appreciated that conversation. And then we noticed towards the end of the episode where she was taking out her braids and she's starting to see the effects of the cancer physically, where she's losing hair. Yeah. So
Wade was trying to step in and be that for her. So
yeah,
I'm a little thrown by her reference, because Swade was trying to do just.
I think it's sometimes when you're so used to being strong, you don't know how to just be.
Yeah.
Like when you're just constantly in a state of like, I can't, like if I drop the ball, I don't have anybody else to pick it up for me. So it's like I have no choice but to be strong. And then having this cancer that you really have no control. There's nothing you can really do yourself that could change your circumstance. So it's like feeling like something is out of your control when you're so used to being in control. I think that's where Jada is.
Yeah, I saw that firsthand, because as you all know, I'm about to say, my mom had cancer and she was fiercely independent before that. And then sometimes she would be snippy and act out and everything because she felt like she was losing her independence. And so that was something that we had to work through.
Right.
So I definitely could relate to what was happening to Jada.
Exactly. And that's what loved ones do. You work through it because they're going through something. So this was a chock full of nuts. I mean, it had everything and the kitchen sink. So, how they come out from it and show us anything beyond what we've already seen this week is going to be amazing. So I look forward to it.
Yeah, this was a good one. I did enjoy this episode. Definitely a lot to look forward to. We are episode 6, so we got 4 more to go. Or is it? Yeah, 4. Let me do my math. You guys have any other comments or outlooks for the next episode we got coming up? It looks like Nina is still tripping over her guilt for what she did.
Nina was wrong. She was wrong.
She was wrong, but I think she's gonna have to. The only way to make amends with this is to come out now. You can't wait.
And it looks like Tiffany and Emmett might be going to some kind of sex party next weekend. I'm thinking it's for Tiff to sell her edibles there. But we know that they still have this open situation. One thing I noticed is when Iman Shumpert's character came in, Tiffany's eyes was all over him. Well, both of them really. They was both eyeing him. So I was like, maybe Tiff got a new prospect in her open marriage.
I see the rise and fall of a man named Emmett. So let's see. It's gonna be interesting, and I hope it's dealt with next week because I think I see another pattern coming along. But
okay, and we'll deal with that discussion as it comes up.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We definitely appreciate your viewership and your constant support. We do not overlook anybody. We appreciate you all. Even our people who support us over on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. If you aren't already following us, follow us there as well at The Spot Real Talk on all of those platforms. Please also drop down in the comments and let us know what you thought about this episode. Let us know your predictions for the next week's episode. And in general, just make sure that you stay tuned because we are going to start trying to incorporate some more things that we have up our sleeve too. So stick with us. Be sure to click the like button on this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you get alerted whenever we post. Anybody got anything else to add?
I think you said it all.
All right, great. Well, thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All in mind if you don't listen that much. But some of y'all don't listen at all. The same shit they be pushing your buttons. Got a grown man having withdrawals. I don't mind if you don't listen that much. Yo, I just mind what you say for the crowd. But some of y'all don't listen at all. Some of y'all don't answer that call. Realize the movie that I was watching, it's the end of the world. Illuminati is coming. Gather the boys and girls and watches it all unfurls. They clutching at all their pearls and no one asking for guidance. Stimulus check, won't you cash app that? I got niggas and they said that respect they black. Politicians and they said